I think probably and I think being delightfully upfront, you and I have been in a business coaching relationship for how long? 2 years?
2 years.
Yeah. And so I thought you would be a wonderful person just to kind of pick the brains of, in terms of the current climate that we find ourselves in, because you and I have done a number of sessions over the year, just in terms of looking at my business and the effects of the pandemic and yes, and such like. So I thought it would be interesting just to chew around. I think chew around in the sense that in the flower school, I have 4 or 5 people who are setting out on business and just very conscious for them. I look back to what have I been in business now, 12, 13 years. And had I started in the middle of a pandemic, I think it would have been a very different, very different picture. So just to kind of, I think, to be as encouraging as possible, because I think you've certainly taught me that sort of, actually sometimes you do need to flip your view and look at it from a different angle. And I think in doing so, you're able to go, actually, this is possible, or this is more doable than I thought.
Yeah.
And also ways of getting yourself out of cycles of thinking, I might as well just give up now, because it's too hard or it's too tricky or whatever. So that's the kind of the starting point, I would say. So to take, for instance, just really simply, if there was a business that came to you and said, we've just started out, and they came to you like, I don't know, May time this year and said, we want some coaching, how would you approach it in terms of sitting in the middle of a pandemic? What would be your...
I think with all my prospective clients, the first question is always, what do you want to get out of coaching?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important for people to understand that it's not, and you have found this, it's not kind of some quick fix. It's not, I can't wave a magic wand and suddenly all your business problems disappear.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to be realistic about what people are hoping to achieve. And I think if you are starting a business now and you're starting a business, like in your area in floristry, or, you want to go into something which is undoubtedly impacted by the current situation, I guess one of my questions would be, why are you starting this business now? Mm-hmm. What's the imperative to start it now? Mm-hmm. What are your goals for your business? What is it that you're hoping to achieve? How I'd be seeking to kind of understand how they got there. Mm-hmm. Because for you, this is, flowers are all you've ever done, really, aren't they? Mm. And you have worked in various settings, but, what you're talking about here, I think, is people that are possibly coming from other careers. Mm-hmm. And I would want to sort of explore with them how they thought that this new venture was going to work in their lives, particularly given that it's such a strange time right now. I think it would be really easy just to sort of say, I just want to pack in my corporate job and do something lovely with flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't we all? I watch Bake Off and I think how lovely it would be to just bake cakes or whatever. Yeah. So I think it is about really understanding what somebody's motivation is for starting a new business right now.
Yeah, and I think that's you've sort of hit the nail on the head straight off for me, because in the sense that like you saying, you're not a quick fix for people as a business coach, and I think that's one of the lessons I've taken from my time with you, is that sense of actually, okay, we need to peel back what's going on here. Yeah. And look in more detail, because I think my approach sometimes is I've got an idea, I'm just going to go for it. And you don't think about the logistics of, what's it going to involve? Who do I need to get to help me? Who do I need to get, to do the tech side of stuff, or, with all this kind of stuff. And actually, in a sense, what I hear you saying is actually it might not be the right time for you to start, or it might not be, maybe you need to build on what you've got and then try at a later date maybe, or keep it small and then grow, or is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that whole idea of not kind of running before you can walk, not deciding, well, how will I cope when I'm doing 30 weddings a year or something like that, when you haven't got your first booking yet. You can kind of lose too much time sort of so far down the line that you're actually thinking about something which isn't going to happen. Think about your first, how are you going to sell your first hand ties from outside your house to your local community? I was reading yesterday about a friend of mine, one of her neighbours. I don't know how they got into making soap, but they just, when the pandemic hit, they started making soap for their neighbours as just a little neighbourly gift, which is such a lovely idea. And now they've turned that into a whole business, and they're starting to sell them online. And you think, I mean, how amazing is that? So, but what they saw there was they saw a really small need, which they met. And it sounds like at that stage they didn't even think about it as a business. It was just about something they were doing, something they were doing for their community. And now that's grown. And I think sometimes you have to take it right back to that. If I don't know whether you and I have ever talked about Simon Sinek.
Love that man.
Start with why. If anybody just Googles him, you can watch him do TED Talks and all sorts of things. But I think that's really important. It's about, why are you doing something? And then you can work out to how you do that. And then the last kind of decision is, what do you actually do? So if you're, well, I don't know, do you know what your why is?
I bloody love
to spread some floral joy.
Well, I think my why is it's I love what I do. That's why I do it.
Why about, why do you do what you do? Why did those people start making soap? Because they wanted to help in their community, and then that's turned into something else. And I think if people come right back to that tiny little, I'm trying not to use horticultural ideas, but if you come back to that seed of what's that thing and what will that go into, rather than looking at the sort of what will I be doing in 5 years. I think one thing we've all learned about this year is that things change like that. I remember talking to you on Monday, was it 22nd or 23rd of March or something? You and I had a conversation, and I remember saying to you, we just need to wait and see what Boris says tonight. Because at that point it was becoming obvious that something was happening, and it was, you were really uncomfortable with that fact, but we didn't know what it was going to look like. And then that, even then we thought it was going to be 3 weeks to start with.
Absolutely. So my next question, I guess, then would be, if a client approached you who'd been in business like myself for 10 years plus, what then would you say to them? Because I guess for me, I'm fairly established. I might not be able to answer the why you why are you doing what you're doing, but I'm fairly comfortable in the business sense of who I am. But I mean, pandemic aside, coming to you was a massive, well, it was definitely a choice. Even though we fell into it in a slightly haphazard sort of way, but it was a choice, and it was a choice to keep having sessions with you. So what would you say to a more established business in the current climate?
Again, I'd be asking that question, what is it that you're wanting to achieve? What is it? People come to me because they want to make a change. And sometimes that changes because something in their life has changed. They're moving house, or their kids have left home, or they've got a new opportunity, they've been made redundant, or whatever. But it's all about making that change. And I would want to understand, why do they want to change? For you, one of the reasons that you needed to change earlier this year was because weddings disappeared off the scene. So suddenly we were looking at like a whole different bunch of things, weren't we? What could you do that didn't involve face-to-face events? So I guess I'd be saying to anybody is, what's the change that you're hoping to see? And then help them to get there, because that I really strongly believe that all my clients, they kind of know their answers. I just need to kind of draw them out. And I think, anybody that comes along to a session, it's almost like you've got this big bag of ideas and maybe another bag of worries or whatever, and we just chuck it all out on the table. And we pick some of it up and go, is this realistic, or are you just making this one up, Grace? It's just you're too much in your head, and then there's some other issues, and we'll work through it. And then kind of at the end of the session, it's like we've chucked some stuff away, tidied some other stuff up, and come up with a list of like, here are some things that you can go away and do. And then we put it all in your bag, and then a couple of weeks later I'll bug you by saying, so how's it going on action point 1 to 3 or whatever. So it's about kind of how, whether you're a new business or whether you're an established business, it's about finding out what that change is, finding out what the gap is between where you are now and where you'd like to be, and sort of helping you draw out, how are we going to move there, and how can I help you?
Definitely, because I think it took me a while to get used to. I mean, I've been in therapeutic relationships for years through my own choice, but it took me a while to adjust to how you worked and how I worked with you. And I would say now, probably 2 years in, I have your voice in my head going,
you poor girl,
what are you doing, Grace? Have you gone back to that? No. And genuinely had a couple of moments where, so for people who are watching this, organisation is always a struggle of mine, I think. And so Michelle's laughing now. So if you look at the notes that I take from a session with Michelle, scribbles all over the page. But I think the last session we had, I'd kind of circled some things, and it's been a couple of times recently where I thought, and I've had particularly low days of kind of thinking, I've just had enough now, this is ridiculous. I'm thinking, actually, no, Grace, you've got a load of notes upstairs, go and look at them, and that'll give you, the basis to start again of thinking, actually, I can chip away. So that's been really useful, but that's taken me quite some time to get to that point. Do you think when you come to your clients, are there easy ways of sort of from the off going, okay, I think you should do this? I know you say you want the answers are all inside people and you want to draw them out, but are there kind of tips that you could give people in terms of helping with that sort of?
I think there are techniques that I can introduce them to that might help them stay on track with things. So, the whole point of coaching is that it's non-directive. So it isn't that I'm going to tell you what to do, but I can give you skills and techniques to help you do the things you've said you are going to do. And one of the massive parts of that is it's really simple. It's about writing down your goals, writing down those steps, and you can make those. There are scientific studies which show this, that you make it more likely for you to succeed at a goal if you write it down, and you can increase that success by telling somebody else about it.
Oh, there you go.
So if you are, if you take notes from a session, and you'll notice that at the end of a session, I tend to write down what you're going to do as well. So I'm going to keep you, so I know what you've written down. So you're on track, like you said, you can go and have a look at those notes. And I'm going to keep you accountable to that. That is more likely for you to succeed.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And how easy is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So even just in the smallest thing, I guess with the flower school, of saying to people, we had a Zoom call, was it 2 weeks ago now, and I was looking at really simple spruce garlands for Christmas, and I sort of talked to them through the basics of doing one, and then said to them, actually, you guys should go and try You should go and try this at home. I'd love to, go forage in your garden, go, get stuff that you can make this with. And a couple of the people on the call said, yeah, I'm going to do, one said, I'm going to do it around my fireplace. And another said to me, oh yeah, I'm going to do one for around my door. And actually it's that coming back to that. A couple of those I've come back to them and said, how's that garland? Have you thought about what foliage you're going to get, or, all that kind of stuff. But actually even that exercise in itself is a helpful one to remember. Yes.
But yeah, if you were to say to, when you have those Zoom calls, if people are going to commit to doing something like that, then it would be great if they shared their photos of that like a week later in your group.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And that's where, things like the Facebook group for the school is lovely, because, and I think it takes a while for people to kind of build up the confidence, but to share their sort of their work, because I think you get a real buzz out of sharing it anyway. People, we all like affirmation. Thanks for listening to the conversation so far. The second part of this will be available at the end of the month.